Hi, I'm Victor, the main organizer of the Full Stack Flutter conference. On this channel we publish the best talks from the conference every week throughout the year, so make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out. I'm also the founder of ServerPod, so if you want to build your backend in Dart, make sure to check that out too. Hannes Winkler is a software developer at KDAB. He's also the author of flutter-pi. In this talk, we'll learn about getting Flutter up and running on embedded systems, such as the Raspberry Pi. Let's dive in.
Okay, so we all know Flutter as the amazing framework for building beautiful apps for mobile, desktop, and web that it is today. And a lot of you might have also heard that it's starting to be more prevalent on embedded devices. But since Flutter doesn't normally work on Linux embedded or other embedded platforms, there are a few external projects that aim to make that possible. And one of these projects is called flutter-pi, which I started back in 2019. And that's what I'm going to talk about today. Okay, so first, who am I? What am I doing here? I'm Hannes. I'm 24 years old, and I live in Magdeburg, close to Berlin. I study computer science at Otto-von-Guericke-Universität in Magdeburg, and I work on flutter-pi and other open source projects in my free time. My personal Flutter story starts in 2019. In 2019, I had my first car. It was a Ford car from 2005. It had like 60 PS. It was pretty loud, but of course, I still loved it since it was my first car, but it was also super slow and didn't even come with a radio when I got it. This was what the interior looked like. Didn't look great. The radio that's in there, I bought it myself because, in the first place, originally there was only an empty storage space in the middle, which I didn't even know was a thing. And for some people, this situation like this would have been enough. But for me, that wasn't enough. I wanted something like this, ideally. This is the interior of a Tesla, and I think we can all agree that that looks better. And I like the big touchscreen in the middle with the nice user interface, and you can control everything about the car from the touchscreen. You can see the live engine data. Can control the AC or navigate or play songs, whatever. I wanted to have something like this, ideally. And there are, of course, aftermarket touchscreen car radios, and they didn't really look like the Tesla infotainment system, and they're also quite expensive. They cost like 400 euros, and also in my car, in the middle, there wasn't even enough space to fit a normal touchscreen car radio because it was a bit too small. And there was also some special features I wanted. For example, on my scale, on my instrument cluster, I couldn't see the RPM, the engine RPM. And that's, for example, one thing I wanted to see on my infotainment system. I also wanted to see things like fuel consumption, just vehicle data, stuff like that. And then I thought, okay, what if I try to build my own car radio? How hard can it be, right? And for the hardware, I thought I could just use a Raspberry Pi because they're powerful enough for most stuff. They're cheap. They have a good ecosystem. You can find any thing you want to, any information about it online. And then the next question was, okay, for the software, what do I use there? And for embedded, there are too many options. There's Qt, or Qt as others call it. It's a C++ framework. But I looked at it, and for me, it didn't seem that modern. It was first developed in 1990, actually, and it seemed like it had a pretty steep learning curve. And I didn't really like it. And then I thought, yeah, okay, what about Flutter? At that point, I've already built a small Flutter app, and I searched online if I could run Flutter apps on Linux or on my Raspberry Pi. And yeah, back in that time, Flutter didn't even have official Linux support. So then I found this article, which is, and I found that someone from Google working on the Flutter team, Jim Megard, had already ported Flutter to Raspberry Pi. But when I tried to get it working myself, I couldn't get it working. It didn't work for me. And it also used an old graphics driver, so I ported it to use the newer open source graphics driver. And I also modified it to use the Linux interfaces for video output directly. So so there's no Wayland or X11 running underneath it, no desktop environment. And yeah, that's my project, flutter-pi. Yeah, that's present on GitHub. It has quite a few stars, and it's written in C, which is nowadays not the best option anymore for stuff like that. And probably even back then it was not the greatest choice, but it has 30,000 lines of code. And yeah, it normally runs using OpenGL ES, but you can also use Vulkan if you want to. And there's some plugins for it. There's a video player plugin using GStreamer. It's all hardware accelerated. And it also has its own tool, which makes using it a bit easier. It's called flutter-pi tool. Yeah, that's how you use the flutter-pi tool here. Pretty simple. You can just need to install it and build the app and then copy it over to the target device, and then you can run it using flutter-pi. And flutter-pi itself, you still have to build that yourself, because building binaries for Linux is a bit hard. No one wants to do it. That's why there's things like app images and Flatpak and Snap and so on. And so you currently still have to build that yourself, but the instructions for it are all in the README. So yeah, shouldn't be too hard to follow. And there's also some useful packages for embedded. For example, there's integration for CAN bus, which you would use to talk to or connect other controllers to your board. For example, we've used it in a demo application to connect some physical buttons to our board. And then you can control stuff like that, or engines communicate via CAN bus to other devices in your car, for example. There's also an integration for SPI, GPIO, or serial port or I2C. And yeah, I've that all listed on the flutter-pi README, so you can check there if you want to know more. And this is how you would use GPIO, for example. Yeah, you just need to check for the right GPIO chip at first, and then you request some pin. Here we request it as input and also listen for edge events, and then you get an event in Dart in Flutter when something happens with the line, like switches from high to low or something like that. And you could use that also to connect physical or a small physical button to your board, or yeah, other things you can do with GPIO as well. And yeah, that also talks to the kernel interfaces directly for best performance, or generally all the packages I wrote, I try to make them talk to the kernel interfaces, and for one, that's good for performance, and the other thing is that means it also works with the other embedders, so you don't need to use flutter-pi for that. You can also use IVA home screen, which I'm going to talk about soon, but yeah. So what are some projects that use flutter-pi? Okay, so the first project, of course, is my car project. I figured I'd show that here as well. And yeah, to be honest, I didn't really develop it that much anymore because I got a new car shortly after that, and so I didn't need to develop my own infotainment system that much anymore. And I had some features already working though. I had, for example, digital radio was working, so I could, do a band scan, see all the radio stations listed, and digital radio in Europe at least also has this cool feature where you can see a slideshow that's broadcasted by the radio station. And yeah, not a lot of digital radios actually implement that, but I had it implemented and working, and I'm going to show that now. And the live engine data, sadly, I couldn't get working anymore because my new car doesn't work with the adapter I had to read out the engine data. So I had to use some dummy values here. And yeah, okay, let's have a look at what my project looked like. Yeah, now it does a band scan for the radio stations. It takes some time because it scans all possible frequencies. I selected just one. Oh, should be able to hear it playing. And at the bottom there, you can see the slideshow image. Oops. Slideshow image. Yeah. Okay, but there's also other projects that use flutter-pi, of course. One project that I think is really cool is called Kerelle ECART. I think they actually took my project to the next level, kinda, because they not only built their own car radio, but they also built their own electric car on top of that. So yeah, here you can see. That car radio here is using flutter-pi, and I had them back then a bit to get some of the features working. For example, they also used CAN bus to talk to their engine. Yeah, so I had them a bit back then. But of course, there's also commercial projects that use flutter-pi. One of them is called Zenith. They are developing smart tennis courts, and they use flutter-pi in their control unit that you can see here at the bottom. And yeah, we also developed some features for them some time ago. And yeah, there's also other projects that I know are using flutter-pi, but I haven't communicated with them directly, so can't really tell what they're doing with it. But yeah. Okay, but where does flutter-pi fit in the whole Flutter architecture? So yeah, this is the architecture diagram that you can also find on the Flutter wiki. And flutter-pi is a so-called Flutter engine embedder. And basically that's the bridge between the Flutter engine and the underlying platform. So there's an embedder for Linux desktop, for example, Windows desktop, Android, iOS. Yeah. And some of the responsibilities that it has is, for example, set up an OpenGL, Vulkan, or Metal surface for the engine to enter into. It also provides the API for plugins, which is a bit problematic because that means that this plugin API is embedder specific, or most of the times, because the plugin APIs provided by the embedders don't need to necessarily be compatible with another. So you have to write the native plugin code multiple times, and I think everyone that's developed a Flutter plugin in the past knows what I'm talking about. And that's actually what's being done in practice, writing the same code multiple times. And that's also a bit annoying, especially for embedded, because we have this rich Flutter plugin and package ecosystem, also for Linux desktop, but we can't really make use of it for Linux embedded because the plugins don't work out of the box there. And that's a bit unfortunate. And the embedder also has other jobs, like provides the engine with touch, mouse, and keyboard input. It sets up locals, accessibility, and some other native integration happens in the embedder. Like if you want to trigger a vibration, haptic feedback, then that would happen in the embedder as well. And there are, of course, also other embedders. There's not only flutter-pi. There's one embedder developed by Toyota, which is called IVI Home Screen. And Toyota is investing pretty heavily into Flutter. They're planning to use it in their cars. And that embedder is very well maintained. It has many plugins. It also has its own tool. And there's also an embedder by Sony. It's called Flutter Linux. Also has its own tool. And there's some other not as widely known embedders. There's a Rust embedder. There used to be a Go embedder for desktop. There's some example embedders. There's Flutter Tizen, and Okay, let's come to the takeaways. What should you have learned up to this point? Okay, so Flutter is already a good candidate for embedded development. Toyota is investing a lot of resources into it, and a lot of startups are already using it in their final products. So if it's good enough for them, it might also be good enough for you. And there's some embedded related infrastructure already there. There's peripheral packages that I mentioned. There's flutter-pi tool, other tools, flutter-pi, other embedders. And there's also some things I didn't touch on. For example, there's a Yocto meta layer, which you would use if you want to build your own custom Linux distribution that's specifically fit for your embedded device. And there's certainly room for improvement because, as I mentioned, most plugins are not supported out of the box by embedded platforms. And if you're missing some features, we can certainly help. We've worked with multiple companies in the past to do things like that. We've, for example, worked with Texas Instruments to optimize the performance of Flutter on their Texas Instruments hardware. We've worked together with Zenith to develop some Flutter-pi features that they needed. And we, as a company, we have 20 years of experience in the embedded field. So we've definitely had a lot of success stories in the past. So if you want to know more, check out our website, kdab.com and industrialflutter.com, which is a project started for us, a platform to bring more attention to Flutter on embedded or industrial systems. So thank you all for your attention. I hope you enjoyed it and learned a bit about Flutter on embedded. And I'm happy to answer any questions.